team that supports you, whether that be your wealth planner. Well, actually, your wealth planner need to be in the loop. Your wealth planner, um, your business attorney, whoever does all of your business transactions for you and sets up your entities, as well as your accountant. So you're making the best decision for you. I mean, literally, our accountant called us at the point that they said these funds were coming down the pipeline, and he got us on a Zoom and walked us through individually what we needed to do to file according to the different business models that we all have. But the CARES Act, I'm sorry?
I was going to say that happens to be my wheelhouse. So for anyone that hasn't applied, tomorrow the SBA is starting the second round. So if you haven't applied, you want to hurry up and do so, because that money might run out quickly.
Yes.
It starts tomorrow.
Okay. So on the residential side, though, for mortgages, that's what I wanted to speak about. There are two options, right? So the CARES Act was put in place effective March 18th for those who just, because that's a key date, because I know some people made some phone calls early, depending on when things were released and when things were happening. But March 18th, if you made a call after that, you needed to make sure that you were calling either for one or two things. That was either for the foreclosure moratorium, or because you have financial hardship and you want to understand what your options are. So let me kind of define what that is. The foreclosure moratorium means that they cannot enact, based on this act, on the CARES Act, they cannot start the foreclosure process on you, right? Meaning if you're unable, again, if you're unable to make your payments, then the onus is on you. And let me be clear, Georgia is a buyer beware state. We are a non-judicial state. Non-judicial means the onus is on you, Mr. and Mrs. Owner, to make the necessary calls and adjustments that you need to make to be safe and sound in your home. And I need you all to be safe and sound in your home. And so with that, you can certainly reach out to your service provider. Your service provider is whoever you're sending your mortgage payments to. Oftentimes that may not be the same person who actually initiated your loan when you purchased your home. So you want to be clear on who your service provider is and make the phone calls to them. However, just as early as this past Monday, so I guess that's almost a week ago since tomorrow will be Monday, I was on a Fair Housing Act call. And one of the things they want you to be clear on is that when you're having that conversation with your service provider, that you're letting them know you're calling because of the CARES Act and COVID-19. Because if they just place you in, if you call and say, hey, I lost my job, I need some relief, I need some help, they can put you in a forbearance program, but that forbearance program is, in some of the things that you're hearing out in the media, can be due in 90 days, meaning, we'll give you 3 months relief. Hopefully you'll get a job. And in 90 days, we're going to, on that fourth month, our expectation is that if you call now, we'll relieve you May, June, July, but in August, we're going to need all of it, all 4 payments. So that's why it's important to make sure that you have the conversation with your lenders. I can tell you, because we have multiple mortgages and because I was doing an actual live myself with my Facebook family on Thursday night, I called all of my lenders. Well, let me not say I called all of them. I called three different ones just to see what the conversation was going to look like, right? So I called our 3 lenders, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus, so I'm not going to put their names out there, but let's say lender 1. I got on the phone and they were like, oh, you just want to do a forbearance? I was like, yeah, what is that? I'm ignorant, they don't know. Oh, okay, well, yeah, you can, all you got to do is just tell me you want to do it and we'll set it up. Whoa. What you mean tell you I want to do it and y'all are going to set what up, right? So you have to pull back and not just allow that, because they've already told, everybody is aware that there is an act out there. That does not mean that customer service rep that you get on the phone is going to press the right magic buttons. So you want to be clear that you're having a COVID-19 CARES Act conversation. Because if you go into forbearance, what that means is you are going into pre-foreclosure. You have now informed your service provider that you are unable to make your mortgage payments, and they're going to give you 3 months leniency, and then they're going to start the process on the other end. They're going to send you right on over to the pre-foreclosure department, and the pre-foreclosure department is going to start working your file. They're going to start reporting things to the credit bureau, yada, 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 and the vicious cycle begins. And coming out of that, especially for our community, is difficult. And so you want to make sure that you're watching the conversation that you're having, because when you have that conversation from a COVID-19, then they give you the 90 days moratorium. They should not be reporting anything to the credit companies. So you should not have any negative impact on your credit scores. They should also not be sending you over to that foreclosure department. There should just be a hold on your file, and you should not be accruing any additional interest, from you enacting that process, right? And and again, onus is on us as individual owners. You need to make sure that when you get off that call, because when I got off the phone call with A or lender one, I was a little disconcerted. So I called lender number two. Lender number two said, "Oh, okay. Can you tell me about your hardship? Tell me what's going on in your household." They asked some qualifying questions that made me feel a little bit better. They asked qualifying questions. They asked, did we think we were going to be able to make our mortgage payments in the next month, 2 months, or 3 months? Could be. I don't know. Right now, we're unable to at this time based on our, work situation. And so they walked me through the options. Would you want to refinance? Would you need a remodification? Do you just need the moratorium? Do you need 3 months? What does that look like? Do you think you'll be able to make the mortgage payment this month? Do you want to start now? Do you want to call us back later? I mean, it was a very engaging conversation. So lender two, I was all down with. I was like, oh, very good. So you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Lender three, same thing. When I called them, the agent walked me through, before I could even ask the questions, the options available. Here's the options available to you. Here's what are you thinking you would want to do? Do you think you'll be able to do something in month 2? And oh, by the way, if you have a payment, if you see you have the funds to make your payment, then please send that in. It will not be counted against you. You will not be taken out of the program, but we advise you to call back and, before like August 1st, when that month 4 payment is due, to make sure that you inform us what your current situation is. Because here's the thing, with the CARES Act, they can extend you another 3 months, 6 months. I believe the actual language in it, and you can go to the HUD website, tell them that you can extend up to 12 months based on your situation, but that is a case by case basis. I'm gonna stop and pause right there. Is there any questions, concerns about anything that I said thus far?
Donna, I have a question. Sorry, guys, my electricity went out, and then
Okay.
it wouldn't even let me log on my phone. So sorry about that.
No worries.
But address what impact or what avenues do renters have in this particular situation?
So I'm going to answer that question from a landlord perspective. And that's true. I mean, that's the perspective I have. I'm just serious. I think renters, and this is what I've been hearing as well, out in the noise, out in the blogosphere, renters need to have a conversation with their landlord. You need to be really clear. People going ghost is not an option. You need to have adult conversations. This is what adulting looks like. And so their evictions cannot be started, right? There is a 2-month moratorium on evictions. However, please be mindful, if you were not paying your mortgage, your rent prior to the COVID-19 and an eviction process was started, this does not stop it, because you were already falling behind. So this is not because of COVID-19. I know that we have a property management company within my brokerage. And so some evictions are moving forward and some people have had to move out. And that may not sound like the warm, fuzzy thing to say. But at the end of the day, if you're a landlord like myself and several other investors on this Zoom meeting, we're everyday people just like you. And so at the end of the day, that mortgage payment has to be made, right? So if you stop making your rent, then now that landlord has to make the mortgage payment, and that landlord is now taking care of you and your family. And how fair is that?
No, that's good stuff, Donna. This is being recorded, so that's good stuff.
Yeah, I ask for people to have adult conversations. Reach out to your landlord. I personally reached out to all of our tenants prior to. When this thing started coming down the pipeline, and here's the thing, I didn't even call them and ask them about the rent. I literally called them and say, hey, just checking on y'all, how you doing? Out of genuine concern. I want to know, how are you? How are things? How is the property? Which I do all the time anyway, because when I rent as a landlord, I let people know I don't rent anything I wouldn't personally live in myself. And so it is our hope and wish and desire that you will take care of our property as we would. And so, you know, I have good relationships with my tenants, and I have good relationships with the tenants of my landlords, my investors, because we're mindful of that. And so if there's renters on the phone and you're renting from an individual landlord, please call them and have a conversation. Please call the property management. There's options. Landlords are absolutely being flexible. I have investors that are being flexible with what that looks like if the conversation, but I have a landlord right now that when I get off this call, I have to go chase the tenant down because the tenant is not replying to them.
Do we have any other questions, ladies? Now's your chance. Oh, somebody put one in the chat box. Are the CARES Act provisions only applicable to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae mortgages?
Good question. Good question. Good question. So yes, it has to be a government-backed loan, and it's not just Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. That's not the only two government loans. So you can have a Fannie Mae loan, you can have a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. You can have a VA loan, you can have a USDA loan. So there's several entities of government-backed loans, but that's a good question. You want to understand what type of loan that you have. Yes.
I have another question. You mentioned that in the process of you trying to get a forbearance, they said they gave you an option of possibly refining. So is that something that is specific to the particular company that you use, or do you, in your experience, are most of the lenders giving you the option to possibly refi if you qualify?
Good question. So I think that's why it's important that you're armed with the information and the options that you can take, because all of the lenders, as I told you, that very first call I had, I mean, they were just like, oh yeah, we'll put you in forbearance. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So it's important that you understand the CARES Act and options that are available to you, because here's the thing, and I had to have this with one of my clients because they've been calling me like, Donna, how do I do this? If you call up that lender and say, I'm unemployed, my husband and I are unemployed, we have no income coming in, you've got to be very careful what that conversation looks like, because if you're calling in to refi or do a remodification, you just told them you don't have a job. So you really need to know why you're calling before you make the phone call, right? What is it that you want to do and that you want them to help and assist you with? I strongly suggest, if you're calling, that it is because you're unable to make the mortgage payments and because you truly do need assistance. I don't encourage anybody to go into this process if you're able to make your mortgage payments. I think that's a clear budgeting conversation that people need to have in regards to what that looks like. Because at the end of the day, whatever that you don't pay over the next 3 months, and each lender is individually different, each service provider is different. There are some that are going to say at the end of this 3 months, yeah, we know what CARES said, but we want all, if your mortgage was $2,000 a month, we want all $8,000 of that right now. There's going to be some that are going to tack it on the back end of your mortgage. There's going to be some that will give you a payment plan. It's going to depend on, they actually have the prerogative and the option. Did that answer the question?
Kind of. I was more asking about the interest side of things, but yeah,
I'm sorry, the interest you said?
I'm not interest, I'm sorry. I was more asking about whether or not, and that refining is an option, but I hear what you said about even if you're going to refi, you need to make sure that in other words, they're going to ask you, if you can't pay it now, if you refi, you might not be able to pay it then. So they're probably going to want it deeper.
And does everybody understand what's a good scenario to refi? Let me just say this. One of the scenarios that typically what most lenders and loan officers have told me over the years, that if you're looking to do a refinance, it needs to make sense. So if you want to refinance a loan, I know everybody thinks, oh, the interest rates are going down, the interest rates are going down. The rule of thumb has always been if it's a 1% difference. And if you're planning on staying in that home longer than the next 5 to 7 years. Why? Because when you refinance a loan, there's closing costs associated with that. So there's fees associated with refinancing. You're going through the loan process again. The good thing is, hopefully, you're doing it with the same service provider lending institution that you are. But if you go to another lending institution to get a refinance of your existing mortgage, then you're looking at incurring the actual fees that it costs to write that paper, right? To create a new loan. People are working on that file. Folks got to get paid. Bank got to get paid. Everybody has to get paid. And so I always encourage people, look at the numbers, make sure the math makes sense to you. Because if you're now getting ready to tack on another $20,000 going through this process on your loan, and you've now tapped out, and oh, by the way, you decided to take some equity out of your home just to come down 0.25%, and oh, I plan on selling the house next year, that doesn't make sense, you all. You've now put yourself in a negative equity situation. So it's got to make sense, and that's when you have a conversation not only with your loan officer but with your wealth planner. Go ahead and smile, Portia. That's my cue to you. That's my nod to you.
That's good stuff. Any other questions? Ask them now, forever hold your peace.
I will say to that question that knowing the difference on whether you have a federally backed loan, at the end of the day, for those of you that may be in a conventional loan situation, you can still call your lender. I mean, at the end of the day, nothing beats a try. So certainly you want to still call the service provider, have a conversation, let them know what your financial hardship is, and they may offer a interest only. They may offer the refi option. They may offer something to you, but you won't know that until you make the phone call. And so make the phone call, y'all. One of the things I really keep saying over and over and over to especially our community, don't let pride have your furniture sitting outside on the front yard. You all, we are a very prideful people, and we will allow pride to stop us from making a phone call that can simply help us and save us. And these lenders and servicing institutions right now are being proactive. They're not calling you to say, hey, do I need to give you a forbearance? But what they are is taking proactive measures so that they can, prevent a 2008, 2009 Great Recession repeat. And that's just not going to happen. I can tell you that's not going to happen. I mean, as I'm speaking to the big boys like Chase and Wells Fargo and Bank of America and Truist, they are truly making changes. And I know you all have probably seen how, and I think you kind of asked me this earlier, Mika, the criteria and requirements for lending are getting stricter. That's not Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac making it stricter. So the federal guidelines are the same, but that primary loan holder, that person that's writing the initial paper, they're saying, I need to be a little stricter on this. I need you to have a better credit score. I need you to have a better debt to income ratio, your DTI. I need to make sure you have money in the bank. I know one of my loan officers called me from Chase last week, and he said, Donna, I hate to even make this phone call because we had 3 deals in the pipeline. He said, Chase just announced that we're doing 700 credit scores and 20% down minimum. And I was driving. If I could throw my hands up, I was like, what you doing to me? But I understood it. I knew it was coming. I didn't think they were going to say 20%. I knew it was going to come down the pipeline. We knew that the larger lenders specifically were going to get much stricter because they're the ones that hold the paper in the secondary market. They're the ones that come behind the smaller Silverton and Benchmarks and Bay Equity and Navy Federal, some of these, well, not Navy Federal, but some of the smaller credit unions and things like that. They're the ones that come behind them and buy the paper. And when we say paper, buy the mortgages, buy the loan. And when they come behind and buy that, they're buying that risk. And so right now they are saying, whoa, we already have a portfolio of risk, and they're trying to mitigate what that portfolio looks like. So they are literally pivoting with their loan officers and saying, yeah, y'all go do those refis. We're going to manage what we have. We want to make sure the people that we have are strong. We want to be intentional about this so that we don't have the foreclosure nightmare. And I'm, you know, I get that all day long. I appreciate them being proactive. But that sent 3 of my folks out the pipeline because they were not at a 700 plus. And certainly well, let me not say that. 2 of them were at 700 plus. One certainly had her 20% down, but that doesn't necessarily want to put 20% down. And so, you know, we're having to kind of come back and start all over with some other lending options.
I have 2 other questions. One is a great segue into the next question I have for you, but someone said, have you seen any lenders that are not increasing their standards?
Good question. Fatima, I see it. Very few. I do have a couple that are still at 580 credit scores, but they have increased their DTI, the debt to income ratio. And the debt to income ratio that really impacts our community the most, student loans and medical bills. Student loans and medical bills will hurt us hands down every time we carry too much student loan debt because of the fact that we know we have to be twice as educated, 3 times as educated as some of our other colleagues in order to be able to get the positions and the salaries that we want to be able to maintain life. So student loans, and if you don't know this already, for those who have never purchased before, I don't know if we have mostly homeowners or not on the call, but if you owe the government in any way, shape, or form, you will not get a loan. So if you are behind in debt on student loans or too high, or you owe the IRS, you need to be in a payment plan in order for a lending institution to be able to make a loan arrangements for you.
What if the loans are deferred, Donna?
So here's the thing with that. So good question. Y'all got some good ones. So if the loans are deferred, it used to be that was a good place to be. Keywords here, used to be. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Portia nod, 2 years, 3 years, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they changed the guidelines and the rules on how they count your student loan debt. And so your student loan debt now, where it used to be if you were deferred, they had a formula that would say, oh, you know, it's only worth, your payment might have been $50 a month, right? Well, that formula has drastically changed. And so now when they calculate, if you are in deferment, there is a formula that will calculate that number for you. And that number is not $50. Mm-hmm. It will come out to $300, $400, $500, $600, $1,000. I had somebody come up with $1,200. And guess what? That is your mortgage payment. So what I am strongly encouraging my clients to do right now is to come out of deferment and make a decision. Have a conversation. I mean, I've got one guy that literally pays $5 a month. And but he's able to do that, right? So so now you're on a payment plan and it's $5 as opposed to $1,200. Right? So it makes a difference if you're on a payment plan, which means they don't have to go calculate the number and look at your extreme student loan debt and be able to come back and say, oh, but you should be paying this. You don't want them to have to determine that for you. So very good question. And that's something, you know, that's why for me, I always make sure I sit down and have buyer consults. First and foremost, before we do anything, before I even have you speak to a lender, I tell folks, as a licensed real estate agent, as a realtor and an associate broker, we have a code of ethics. We are bound by a code of ethics. I don't have a Hippocratic oath like the doctors. I don't have, you know, client attorney privileges, but, you know, I pride myself on my integrity and my ethics. And so whatever you share with me stays with me, but I'd rather us have a real conversation up front about what your situation is so that I can guide you and steer you to the right lending institution, because each one does have different scenarios and different packages. These, as I shared, the smaller mortgage brokers have investors that buy their paper, and each investor has different criteria. And so those investors, some investor may still take a loan at 580 or 560. Where the next investors are like, no, I'm gonna need that to say 620, 640, 660. And literally Those that were taking 580 or 620 have bumped themselves up to a 640, 680, or a 700. So it's getting much tighter out there.
Donna, I have a few people that are interested in investing. And
Mm-hmm.
so they've been sitting on some money and they're anxious to invest it in property because they were also told that the quickest way to become a millionaire is through real estate.
Absolutely.
And in this particular climate, what's your advice on investing now? Should they wait till the dust settle? Because as you said, some of these banks are now raising their standards. So where should they go? And then someone asked a question that goes directly with this. As a millennial who's just getting into a more or less stable income, how would I start with getting a home? So investing and purchasing a home during this time.
Okay, so let me address the investing one. So that's where you started. Absolutely, there's no such thing as not a good time to invest. It's just a matter of how you invest and where you invest and what you invest in. I think that's a personal decision. So even with my investors, I sit down and my questions are what makes you get up? Why are you doing this? What's your why? Because your why is going to determine your investing portfolio. So I'll share my personal story. My why is to retire my husband, because my husband works for Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern is the most racist company I have ever seen in my life. And although I know that he needs to continue working there just because of the time invested and what they walk away with for a retirement plan, my why is that, right? And so what that means is replacing that income in our household. And so we invest according to how we have to replace that income in our household. I have investors that their why is to make sure that their children do not have student loan debt. So if they've got 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, they want to use their real estate portfolio to be able to pay for their child's education. Where there are those that are empty nesters, their kids have already gone through college and it's because they want to travel the world. So first and foremost, investing is based on you personally and your why. And from there, we can determine whether or not you are a buy and hold investor, whether you are a flip investor, where you actually invest at, which can then lead to my first time home buyer. I have first time home buyers that are buying duplexes and tris and quads because it allows them to live on one side and be able to get their mortgage paid on the second and the third side. Now, Atlanta has a very limited market on duplexes, tris, and quads, and not necessarily in the best of neighborhoods. They're transitional areas, but it's a possibility. So it really, investing begins with your why. We have to sit down and you have to tell me 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what does this look like? Because if your 3-year goal, if your child is 16 and getting ready to graduate in a couple of years, we have a very aggressive portfolio. If the goal is for this child not to have any student loan. But if your child is 3, then we got a long-term goal. So it really depends on what your why is and why you're getting in the marketplace. But I wholeheartedly advise everybody get in the marketplace. There's nothing better than owning land, owning property. I don't know, I guess 4th generation in my family.
So with that being said, there are some people that want to get into flipping homes, right? So they're watching HGTV and they're getting super excited because they think, they can flip a home in, 30 days or 45 days. So kind of talk about your experience with that and the do's and don'ts. Or do you have a preference, maybe staying away from fixer-uppers? So give us your advice on that.
I think it depends on your why. So it depends on what kind of portfolio we're building. I think there is a marketplace for fixer-uppers and flipping, but it's not for the faint at heart. It doesn't turn around in 30 days, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Was it Desiree I was speaking to earlier that's got the investment property? Is that Desiree?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
How many properties have you done, Desiree?
In terms of buy and hold, I have 4. In terms of flippings, is my first one. And yes, It's never what you think. It's
So
never
yeah,
what you think. And you hold it longer than you thought. And now because of the whole coronavirus, that even makes it a little bit worse.
which is why you all are now thinking about short term and Airbnb and what are my other options, right?
Oh yeah, yes, I'm thinking about Airbnb, and that one, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Thinking
I
about
understand. I'm in
Airbnb.
the same scenario right now. We got a property that we just purchased in Panama City Beach that we were getting ready to do short-term rentals on, which is a gold mine down in that sand. However, they've locked it down. The state of Florida and California and several and even Georgia are not allowing any short-term Airbnbs right now. So that's
Yeah,
another question too you got to look at.
yeah,
So because they're not allowing that, my husband and I were literally sitting having a conversation about so.
yeah. That's where I am right now. And so
Mm,
and just to tell you my story a little bit, I have a hard money loan that's out there right now.
mm,
Yeah, so I was thinking about refining that one, or rather just not buying. I remember buying it for myself basically because I had pretty good credit and all of that. So I'm able to do that. So right now I'm on the fence of either waiting to see if I can sell it or buying it myself and then using it as an Airbnb because I've always wanted an Airbnb and that's in the perfect location for that. So the
okay.
coronavirus just made me sort of think a little bit outside the box and not think of what I initially wanted, which was to buy and flip. Now I'm
Mhm.
thinking, well, maybe I should buy it and do what I always wanted to do, which was an Airbnb.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. I mean, if your specific real estate professional is not into that, there are this is an investor conversation. You all, are you familiar with the RIAs?
The
There's a
REITs,
the Real Estate Investment Associations.
I've heard of them, but I've never really dug in to see what they do.
I would suggest you, so there's your homework assignment. There are RIAs all around the metro Atlanta area. I'm a member of the South RIA, which is the South Atlanta RIA, but they're real estate investment associations. They're all around the country. I mean, they're national organizations, but what they are is for real estate investors to be able to mix and mingle with like-minded people. And so the South RIA actually they do small group meetups, and a lot of them have gone virtual. There is a small group meetup for those that are interested in short-term rentals.
Okay.
So and there's the
Okay.
Atlanta RIA, there's the Metro Atlanta RIA, there's like 5 or 6 around Atlanta, just the Atlanta metro area that wealth of information, wealth of resources, and minimal cost. It's worth the investment into one of them to be able to network with like-minded other investors. And even the tools, access to spreadsheets and ROIs and just understanding scenarios. Somebody was asking earlier about the investments. There's just so many things that come into play when I'm looking at whether I'm going to buy and flip or whether we're going to buy and hold. Because each scenario looks different depending on where that location is. If you're in the city of Atlanta, which is like a hotbed for investors, everybody and their mama want to buy something and flip it in Atlanta. And so you got a lot of competition in the marketplace, and the numbers need to make sense. It needs to be when you go in, if I'm pretty good at going in and doing an eyeball really quick, but I bring my contractors in. So even if my eyeball tells me 30, 40 grand, I know that I've got more than that I've got to put into it. Then my contractors may come in and say, oh no, this is a 50, 60 gut job because we got to get rid of all of the plumbing. We got to get rid of all of this, old electrical wiring because you've got older homes in the city. So I personally am not a flipper in the city. I prefer to be outside of the suburbs. I don't like to compete with all them folks. I like to be big fish in small pond as opposed to small fish in big pond. So my scenarios are a little different, what I do and kind of what I coach my investors through, especially first timers.
We have another question.
Oh, wait. Let me go to the first time home buyer, the millennial.
Okay.
Right. Let me finish that. So there's several scenarios for you because I think she said I'm just starting to get stable with my income. So it's a conversation. There's a buyer consult where we sit down and we talk about your situation. How long have you been on the job? Or how long have you been in your career profession? Because that's one of the questions that the lenders will ask, because you may have been on 2 different jobs since college. But as long as it's in the same classification, same field, it counts as congruent time. You want to be able to, we need to talk about funds availability. what does what type of outstanding student loan or debt that you may have, so we can understand what your debt to income ratio is, what your credit scores are, and what you want to do. Because as I suggested earlier, I mean, I've got a lot of young people that, so my traditional scenario for my young people is buy a condo, buy a townhouse that doesn't have any rent restrictions, so that we can build family wealth, so that when you are ready to move up and move on, this is your first house, not your last house. We want something that's going to be profitable. So let's find you a condo or a townhouse that is convenient for work, and so work, live, play, whatever it is that your lifestyle is. And then at the point that we're ready to move up, whether that's a year, 2 years, 3 years, you've got investment property. I've got a young man now that is, I put him in his first townhome at 23. He is now 32 and on his third house, because but he owns all of them. So the very first condo we bought it intentional, and we bought the second one intentional, and we have just purchased his third home, his third actual single family home now. And I've got several people that are like that.
Donna, how would you suggest getting prepared for home ownership in terms of savings right now during this time?
Good question. Good question. So my people, I know that everybody wants something. Everybody want a deal. I just got finished having this conversation with one of my clients about, I need a deal. I need a deal. I need a deal. I need a great hustle. I need to find the best bargain out there. There is always going to be packages, right? So there's the Invest Atlanta, there's the Dream programs, but just understand there is no such thing as free money. Everything has an attachment. Everything has an attachment. Whether it requires you to stay in the home for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whether it's a silent loan on the back of your loan, and it has to be repaid at the point that you want. I've had several people that didn't even know they had silent second mortgages on their homes, because they just thought they got free money. And we went to go sell a house, and they were within the restricted time period, and ended up having to, pay off whatever that silent mortgage was back to Invest Atlanta or whomever the entity was, because they thought they had free money. So let's be clear, first and foremost, there's no such thing as free money. So there are programs that you can certainly be applicable, that you can be qualified for. But I always tell my clients, let's look at what that looks like. And let's also look at using your own money. So if you're preparing, at a minimum, you need 3% down, 3% of whatever the purchase price is of that home. That's a minimum. Loan requirements now are going up to 5%, 7%. And I just told you Chase went 20% down, and 700 credit scores on a conventional loan. FHA, of course, and VA, Navy Federal still has some 100% loan packages. So there's options out there, but keep in mind, when you look at your numbers and your 30-year spread, you want to be clear what it's costing you to not have any vested interest in the property that you're purchasing. This is your property.
Donna, I'm so glad you spoke about the 30 years. So I was privy to a conversation with someone who was purchasing a home. And they had a broker of another nationality, another race. And she asked her the question, she said, why is it that Americans enter into these 30-year mortgages? She said, based off of your income, you can pay this house off in 8 to 10 years. So why would you enter 30? So what would you say to that? People that do have enough income and entering into 30-year mortgages?
We are one of the only countries that does this. Outside of America, everybody else owns their homes. They buy their homes with cash. They build their homes with cash. We are the only country that is indebted for our shelter. Period. One of the main countries that is in debt for the shelter over our heads, because we won't live large. What I would say is, I think the scenarios, it depends on you. So when I'm sitting down talking to my buyers, I have this very same conversation about the 15-year, 20-year, 30-year mortgages. I think it needs to make sense for you. So I'm going to tell you the world according to Donna, right? And I think it matters who you are and what a good steward you are of your finances. So for me and my house, be clear, me and my house, this is Donna, I'm going to always have 30-year mortgages, only because it allows me to make the choice of how I want to make my mortgage payments. So we got a mortgage on everything we own up in here. I'm going to die with owing somebody some money. I'm just be clear with that. So there's going to always be a mortgage, but we pay those mortgages as if they are 15-year or 20-year or 10-year, because we're diligent in our strategy and what we want to pay off. What I don't want to do is be locked into a 10-year, 15-year mortgage, and that's now taken away my flexibility and access to cash to be able to go and build my portfolio. Well, according to Donna, that's the Donna Middlebrooks household. Now, there are some that literally want to be able to say, I've got this much money, I want to pay it off in 15 because I want to own this home. That works for some people, owning their primary home. I'm telling you, if somebody knock on my door today, even though I think this is the home that we are going to retire in, if somebody walking up on this door today and say, you know what, we love your house, you got the only house in the community that has da 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 da, we want to offer y'all blah blah blah, here go the keys, and we will go find something else, right? Because it's shelter, you all. If I could just get people to understand, we get so attached to these homes and making them perfect. This is an investment. This should be helping to build family wealth and generational wealth for you. That's what this thing is. And we need to change our mindset. When we get that part, that this is about generational wealth building, and you see, y'all, I know y'all see, we have our, lighter hue colleagues that will get on, and you see them jump from house to house every 3 years. They'll go buy a fixer-upper. They don't care what hood it is in Atlanta. They will buy that fixer-upper. They will live in that fixer-up for 2 or 3 years, sell it for $60,000, $70,000, go buy another one. That's how they're building their wealth. But we want to go buy the top of the food chain, $300,000, $400,000 house, sit in the $300,000, $400,000 house, struggle to pay for it for 30 years, or we're going to be aggressive and we're going to pay it off in 20 years, because Lord knows you can save on that interest payment when you do pay it off early, right? But then we got nothing else. We got that one house. That's it. One piece of property. We've not built any type of wealth.
I think you just answered another question, because they wanted to know, is it beneficial to pay off your home if you can?
Well, according to Donna, see y'all, Portia Ryan Girton is my wealth planner, y'all. You see her shaking her head over there. I'm gonna tell you, just like I just said, Donna gonna die with a mortgage. I'm just telling you. My goal in life is not to pay mortgages off. That's just me and my house. That's me and my wheelhouse. It is not to pay off mortgages. It's just not. I will sit here and shift paper around, and I don't rob Peter to pay Paul, because I don't believe in robbing Peter to pay Paul. The Bible tells us, pay the tax man what the tax man is due. Be real clear about that. However, I do think it makes a difference on what your financial plan is. And you all, if you've not had a conversation with a financial planner, please understand. My attorney did a Facebook Live about 3 weeks ago, and she was doing it on estate planning. We all have an estate. Everybody, you got something. You own something. We all have an estate. You need to be having conversations about what that looks like, because I think you said it earlier, Mika, most of us don't know. We're told that real estate is the quickest way to become a millionaire. I don't think most of us even understand the value that we have already in what we do have. If you really realize that you have an estate, even if it's all your designer bags in your closet that you got to go now divvy out to your family members, you have an estate. You have something that needs to be divvied out should something happen to you. And so if you have an estate, which I hope goes beyond your designer bags and your designer shoes and whatever that may be, when you have an estate, you need to figure out what that looks like, right? And so hence, you need to figure out what this looks like. You need to have a plan, because I promise you, if you sit down, you've got more wealth than you actually think you have. I was in a workshop last year, a seminar. I go to a mastermind workshop every year in San Diego, which is us in the real estate industry working on ourselves with our coaching program. And he always does this millionaire segment because he's a multimillionaire. So he either does it himself or he brings in his multimillionaire contingency to have a conversation with us. And something he said last year that struck home with me, when I tell you I couldn't get out that convention center quick enough to get to my husband and say, baby, let me tell you what I just found out. And so he did a scenario to explain to you what a millionaire looks like. Because I think most of us think that's just not reachable. And it is. Because we think millionaires and we put that S on it and we think it means we have to have millions, which I want you to have millions. But understand that getting to a millionaire status is not that difficult when most people are out here making 70, 80,000 a year. I mean, these young people, these millennials coming out of college, get jobs making 70, 80,000 dollars a year. When I came out of college, I'm about to date myself. My goal was to make more than out my age, $21,000. Okay. And these young people are coming out making 70, 80, $90,000, making six figures. So if you're making six figures and you invest wisely early on in the game, then if you accumulate, like the young man I told you, I put him in his first property at 23, who is now 32, think he's not a millionaire on paper? On paper, because what they showed us in the scenario was, if you have $77,000 that you can get your hands on, $77,000 that you can get your hands on, meaning if you had to pull equity out of your home, sell your vehicles, do whatever, but be able to come out your 401k, if you could get your hands on $77,000, 7 times 10 gets you $777,000, right? How close to that? How close are you? And truly, and that's just the cash that you can access. That's the liquidity that you can access. Guess what? You're a millionaire on paper. You're a millionaire and don't even know it. Y'all, I tell you, I went home and pulled out my notepad and I was like, wait a minute, I own, we own, I looked at my husband, I said, hot diggity dang. Hot diggity dang, guess what? Right? So you all need to realize the wealth potential that you have, that we have. We are a smart and blessed people. I mean, I can't even imagine looking just the names that I know on this phone call, the degrees that I know are on this phone call, the salaries that I know are on this phone call, because I am their real estate agent. Come on, ladies. Ladies, I'm just asking you to change your mindset on what that looks like. I'm not saying you don't deserve to go get whatever designer piece you want. I'm just saying be mindful. Be mindful. I'm not saying, please drive around in the vehicle that you want to drive around with, but make sure that you are investing wisely in appreciable items and not depreciable items. Did I go way off on a tangent on that one, Mika?
No, that was good. That was good. I'm getting text messages as well as in the private chat, like, oh my gosh, this was so informative. This was so needed. Donna, we thank you so very much for taking time out of, because I know you're a busy woman. I know. I text and
I love this. I love this.
you got a lot going on, but we appreciate you taking out the time. This was recorded. I don't know what kind of happened in between when I logged off, if it continued to record. But this will be up for other people to access and listen to, because this was some valuable information. And so we have 8 minutes left. Do we have any other questions? If we do not, Donna, I want you to give us lovely women like some closing remarks and something to leave on our hearts. So are all hearts and minds clear? Okay, Donna, go ahead and close us out.
I would go back to, you said, like you themed this when you called me and asked me would I participate. You sent me a theme of opening the cul-de-sac. And, you know, I envisioned that cul-de-sac, and we all know that a cul-de-sac normally comes down to like a dead end, but you can come around and you can make a circle and come back out, right? So I would just say that I encourage people to not get stuck in the cul-de-sac, but understand that that's just a loop around, right? And figure out what it is that you need to actually loop around. Where do you need to be based on where you are right now, today, just today? Because if we're sitting home quarantined, what we need to do is come out better, stronger, more educated, more informed than the way we went in. You should not leave this quarantine the same way you came in. Somebody sent me a video of a young brother in a car with his, I don't know if it's a son or a daughter, I can't tell. But either way, the child is adorable. But he is literally quizzing the child, what's an entrepreneur? Explain to me what an entrepreneur
Yes,
is.
I just
What's
saw
an
that.
investor? Tell
Yes.
me what an investor is. Who invests? What is cash? What is the difference in property? Residential versus commercial. What's residential property? What's commercial property? I'm looking at this little kid like, yes, yes. And you know why I could say yes? Yes, because I was that kid. You know, and I'm clear that I was that kid. I'm clear that I watched my mom and dad. I watched my mom more so than my dad. I watched my mom go pick up the rent checks. I watched my grandparents go pick up the rent checks. So understanding that you must own property, but they can't take that away from you. Just like they can't take this away from us. Use your mind wisely, you all. This is, this is our God-given gift. We all have individual talents. Understand what your talents are and use them wisely. That's what I would say.
That was awesome. That was an awesome closing. Ladies, thank you so much for joining. We're here every single Sunday at 5 p.m. If this information was valuable to you, what I would say is please help share, right? This information that we're getting week after week. Let's not be selfish. We need to help empower other women. There were so many people that needed to be on this call that had questions and didn't join the call. And so I would say, please help me get the word out because this is free. You know, when we were meeting in person, it was $20 to attend each month, but this is a free opportunity to gain wealth and sow seeds into yourself. So I would encourage you to please help spread the word about Sisterhood Sunday. Every single Sunday at 5 p.m. We'll be bringing topics that you care about. If there's something else you'd like to hear, type it in the chat box and say, I want you to touch on this topic. And we would love to get those people in front of you. But ladies, thank you so very much. I encourage you to follow our social media on Instagram at Sisterhood Sunday ATL, and on Facebook, we're at Sisterhood Sunday. We will be back here again next week talking about the withdrawal process, right? Having these symptoms. And most of these symptoms come from hurt, childhood traumas, things that we've been through. And we go into these situations almost just like addicts, right? We go into these situations where we're like, okay, I want to be set free. I want to be delivered. I want to go down a new path. And then you start that process, and then the nightmares come, the sweats, the shakes come. And then you say, okay, you know what? This is too painful. And then you have to start back at one. So we're going to have Carolyn Molden, a holistic spiritual coach, on next week to talk about the process and actually take you through some processes that she has, some exercises to help you get through the process of getting your past healed. And it's not until we get healed, ladies, that we can move forward, or else we'll move forward and then have to take 2 steps back because we haven't dealt with that issue. So I can't wait to hear what she has to say on next week. And I would love for you guys to join us. And if all hearts and minds are clear, if this has been great, you can Cash App Donna. Donna, what you?
No
Yeah. You can Cash App Donna your offering or send her a little tip. But Donna, go ahead and put your contact information into the chat box for those people that would like to get in contact with you about investing, about purchasing a home, about selling a home.
I did early on, so I'm somewhere up in the top of the chat box.
Okay.
You'll see it. It's got Donna. So my full name is Donna R. Middlebrooks. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Lady Dreamweaver. That's my nickname. I mentor a lot in the schools, and so some young people told me when I was explaining what I did for a living, they said, "Oh, so you weave people's dreams. You like a lady dream weaver." And I was like, "I like that." So I've kept it. So my tagline on Facebook and Instagram is Lady Dream Weaver. I am an associate broker and real estate agent, realtor, and realtist with Remax Premier. So my phone number is there, my email is there. I am a certified sellers agent, certified buyers agent, certified REO specialist, certified military relocation specialist, VA specialist. I'm a certified everything, y'all. Certified senior residential specialist because I love my 55 and over crew. And I'm also licensed in Florida and South Carolina because you too need to own some investment properties, second home, retirement properties somewhere where it can make you some money. So I even put on there, let your legacy, let's take your legacy to the next level. So I'm ready, I'm here, I'm available. But first and foremost, I am always available as a resource to Mika and anyone, in her circle. I love sharing.
And you can always text me and I'll get you her information. But once again, thank you so much, ladies, for joining. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. It's still beautiful outside. And thank you for joining Sisterhood Sunday. And I'll leave it up so you guys can network or ask more questions, talk to one another. So it'll be up for another 5-10 minutes.
I'll hang around for anybody that wants to ask any more questions and or send me a chat.
Bluetooth mode.
Oh, you know what I forgot to mention, and I should have put it in the group, but a lot of the information that I shared on the CARES Act, Mika, is on the HUD website. So you can go to, or you can just type in COVID-19 CARES Act, but you can go to consumerfinance.gov. I'll type it in the chat.
Okay.
There's several sources that you can go to get the information for anybody that needs assistance with the forbearance or hardship and just kind of having some guidance on how to walk through that process.
Okay.